Hi friends, let's start with the new video on Python series today. And what it, we as usual what we are going to do is we are going to go to the browser and say online Python interpreter and just get there and let's start coding. So today's topic is loops, something which we started with in our previous two videos. Uh, what we worked on in the videos was essentially the for loop. Today we are going to talk about a different kind of loop called while loop and see how is it different from the for loop, what's the difference in the syntax, and what are the special cases where only for loop while loop is applicable and for loop is not, and what are the cases where for loop is more convenient compared to a while loop. Okay, let's start with an example similar to a previous example. Let's take a string and then say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And then I want to access each element of the string or print it. Say for I or for character. We can just I is a dummy variable. You can say for each character in string, or maybe let's start it well like this: each character in range. It starts from 0 and it ends at len of string, and then we are incrementing with 1. I'm just using the extended form of the for loop to make it directly comparable to the while loop. So this is a full syntax of the for loop, and what I want to say is I want to print character. Now let's execute. So okay, so what we did was we actually printed the indices. So we can say string character. This is what we have learned, or probably let's change it back to make it more um, discernible. So for string and index, so that's the index we are fetching there, and so these are the characters I got it. Now the same thing most likely we should be able to do using while loop. Let's say while loop, and let's see what's the syntax of this. Now in for loop, we have everything compact. We have the starting initiating variable, we have the ending variable, and we have the increment. So in while loop, this is a difference. Like this while loop is very similar to the kind of loops we have in old programming languages. So we have to set the counter. So we can say I is equal to 0, and then we will say while uh, I less than equal to len of string. So this is a thing, and then we will say print and string of I, and then let's say I plus equal to 1. Let's see what it does for us. Yeah, it did the same thing actually, uh, but so probably we just need to stop here. Yeah, that's right. So we were able to achieve the same thing using these. Let's put a space over a new line character over here so that we can distinguish between our two inputs from the for loop and while loop. Oh, no, it doesn't. Uh, what happened? Did I do wrong? We can actually just say print, and now the while loop starts here. Yeah, so it's exactly the same output. Now let's analyze the difference in a for loop. So for these kind of loops, you need essentially three things. You need the initiator, you need to know where you want to stop, and you need to know the increment. Now everything goes in one go in the for loop. In the while loop, you have to start the initiator outside the loop. You have to provide the condition where you want to end over here, and then you have to provide the increment inside the loop. So in most cases, both for and while loop can do the same work for you. Only thing is it's little bit clumsy to use a while loop in circumstances like these. The for loop is a little easier in terms of syntax, but of course there's no reason. But there are some cases where for loop is more intuitive. Like probably it doesn't make any sense to use a there are cases where while loop is more intuitive. I mean, it doesn't make much sense to use a for loop there. So we'll discuss one example, and let's try another example so that you bit of grasp the syntax. And I'm just gonna try to keep this video short over here. So suppose I am trying to guess the password. So suppose my password is password for operating system or whatever application you can think of, A B C D E F G H. So this is my password and I want to guess this. Okay, and I can just say I want to only allow 3 tries. And if we say for I in uh, range 3, so I'm gonna start with, so probably 1 to 3 with an increment of 1 with default, and I say user input, so whatever the user gives. So that's the actual password in line number 4. But now we are asking the user, please enter the password, right? And then if our password, if user input, if our user input is exactly equal to what the actual password is, so what we can do is, rather than, because we said how many tries we wanna say, so we wanna give 3 attempts to the user. So let's change this variable like this, better illustration. Okay, now if the user input is equal to the password, we can say print, we'll say authentication successful. Okay, or so if we are doing this, so the input is print enter the password, and if the user input is this, so we can probably break the loop. Let's try this much and then we move forward. Okay, so what's okay, user input is equal to input, so we're asking for a string, so A B C D E F G H. Oh, A B C D E F G H. Okay, so this portion of the thing works, and I can put a tab here, and if the user okay, and then what we are going to do is else print maybe authentication failed, right? Let's try this. So A B C D E F G H. Oh, A B C D E F G H. Okay, let's try another thing, maybe A B C authentication failed, and then A B C D authentication failed, and okay, so that's where it stops actually. what I need to do is, if I have the number of tries like this, we can say else authentication failed. So it's just giving me two tries. I want more tries. Let's say maybe stop. Let's try this. Okay, so it's I'm gonna give three attempts to this. So suppose let's do this range ABC, ABC, and ABC. So it's stopped, and let's then do this. Yeah, so authentication successful. Or instead of doing this, what we can do is uh, you have exhausted all the attempts. Please reset your password. No, your account is locked. Your account is locked. Let's try this again. So please enter the password ABC, ABC, ABC. And you've exhausted all attempts, your account is locked. And then let's try this ABCDEFGH. So this works fine, authentication successful. And let's try another case. Wrong, and ABCDEFGH, right. So the code works fine in all scenarios. So you gave the three tries in total, and if your password matches the password we have set up, so it allows you to enter, otherwise it doesn't allow you to enter. So it's more like you see it mostly when you are on the internet getting into an account or something. It's very similar how it works. So this is how you can use the for loop. Let's try to use the while loop instead of a for loop over here, and say while I let's close this. While I less than, so we can say uh, count is equal to 0, we can set it, or I is equal to 0, and while I less than tries, and we ask the user input, and if the user input is break, and then we can put a counter over here. So if the user input, so you break, and else you say I plus equal to 1. Let's try this. So please enter the password ABCDEFGH. So that's the right password, good. And please enter the password. Let's enter a wrong password. ABC, yeah, ABC and ABC. Okay, and let's try another scenario. Oh, it's just giving us the usual problems. Let's reload the compiler, and let's try this one. Now one wrong and another wrong and one right. A B C D E F G H. Okay, great. So this works. So this is how you can do the for loop. So essentially what we did was we initiated the counter outside, we gave the final condition here, and then you do the increment over here. This is how you work with the while loop. In the for loop, everything comes here, so you could have given the increment also. 0 tries 1, and it works fine. Now let's look at the case where while loop should be the loop of choice. Let's see now. Suppose if I say uh, while while uh, okay, so let's start. User input is equal to, I can initiate a string while uh, user input not equal to the password, and then we can say, so please enter the password, and then it will password, and then it keeps on entering the password, and then we can say authentication successful. Let's try this. Okay, ABC, 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 ADE. Okay, and then ABCDEFGH. Great. So this is a case when user has no limit of attempting the number of times he gives the password. So in this case, the while loop is the only possibility. The reason over here is because you don't know how many times the user will enter password, and or how many times it will take the you for the user to guess the right password. Now, for the for loop, the syntax is pretty clear. You need to have the range, or you need to know where to stop. So whenever you know where to stop, for loop is always helpful. You can also use a while loop, but in this case, we did not see it. Look, we did not define any counter in the while loop. We did not define the ending statement. We did not define an increment. Now, in this case, the while loop is used to just execute a block of code. Now, for loop is not going to be useful in this case because the syntax of the for will not be satisfied. So this is one important case where you can only use a while loop. So essentially, when you want to just keep executing the loop unless it reaches a condition and just put the condition at the top, then the while loop just works like this. So now this can go as an infinite loop. You keep on entering a wrong password, and it's gonna keep on bugging you to ask for the right password. So let's just try to execute again and keep going crazy with wrong passwords, A B C, and then yeah, yeah. So it's just never gonna end here. So we need to put the right password, A B C D E F G H, and then it's gonna just. And another thing to note over here is you're using a while else kind of structure, and we also used the for else structure earlier actually. So it's very similar. So you can tell it's more like a conditional statement. While this is true, do this, else if this is true, else if it is, if the condition is not true, do this. So I hope you made some sense of the use of while and for loop. Probably in the next video we will do some more problems with for and while loops, and see some of their use cases. But I believe this gives a basic idea, and this the use of this password guessing kind of game is really intuitive and demonstrates the power of such a small looping kind of uh, program to do something wonderful. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here and we'll meet in the next video. And thank you very much for your attention.